Hello and welcome to the M.B.Om podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. M.B.Om is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at M.B.Om, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am super excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Danielle Hayden from Kickstart Accounting. And if this name sounds familiar, it's probably because you listened to an episode with her back in December of 2020. So pushing on a year and a half ago, I had her on the show and we had a really great conversation around finances, bookkeeping, accounting, all that type of thing. And this is pretty much a yearly conversation I have with different guests because as we approach the end of the year, it means we're gathering all of our finances together to get ready for tax season and all of those types of things. And every year I love talking to people about how we can do this better because this can be the type of thing that is an all-day burden, super uncomfortable, something that just we can put off, procrastinate, not enjoy, or we can do a little bit of work all year round and just make it a little bit easier for us. And although we're not currently in the thick of tax season, I think that since we're at the midway point of the year or pretty much at that point, it's a really great time for us to be talking about money mindset and knowing your numbers. And that's exactly what Danielle and I are talking about today. This episode was previously recorded as a bonus episode for my patrons over on Patreon at M.B.Om Behind the Scenes. And this is a really great episode. So I just really wanted to share it with you all here today. And yeah, I'm excited to dive in. So on this episode, we're going to talk about money mindset, how to start thriving and accepting money, and a few tips to do that. So short and sweet, really awesome episode. I hope that it hits home for all of you the way that it did for me. And I'm excited to dive in. Before we get there, I just wanted to give a little shout out to this week's sponsor of the podcast, Offering Tree. Offering Tree is a fantastic software for all things yoga business. They have everything from your website to your email newsletter, course creation options, memberships, payment, and so much more. And I'll tell you a little bit more about them later on in the show. All right, let's get into it. Here's Danielle. Danielle, welcome behind the scenes. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited as well.
We just had a really fabulous conversation for the main feed all about accounting, bookkeeping, getting empowered with numbers. And one of the things that it kind of got me thinking about is particularly within the yoga industry, a lot of people kind of struggle with this idea of actually making money and accepting money. And I'm really passionate about obviously yoga teachers and studio owners getting paid for the work that they do because I do think that it is a valuable service. I'm curious what your thoughts are on kind of getting comfortable with the idea of accepting money and the idea of, carrying like a money story with us.
Yeah, this is so common. And I didn't realize when I went into business 6 years ago, people talk to me about money mindset all the time. And I'm like, what is that? 6 years later, I'm like, wow, we all have such a mindset story behind us. It is incredible. The best way to start to overcome that is going to be to know your numbers. And I know that sounds crazy and probably cliche coming from me, but by understanding that you are not only creating a safe space for people, you are investing in others, right? We all like to care for others. It's hard for us to accept that we also need to live and prosper off of that. So think about all of the investment that you have made to be able to create a space and a community for people to gather. You may have opened a studio or an online presence. You've invested your time, your energy, your training, maybe even your debt you've really invested in creating that space. And if we think back at to historical times, um, there's always been a trade for services. It might have looked like in a trade of food, right? Maybe shelter for the monks coming in to provide a yoga service. It's no different today. You have to be able to put food on your table, and you have to be able to put a roof over your head. So it's still an exchange of goods where you're caretaking for them and they're caretaking for you by being able to provide you with food and shelter.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that and am aligned with that. I always think about, there has to be some sort of an exchange. And I think with yoga, it's normally as a teacher, you are offering a service and that's, your time and your energy. And it's very like energetically draining to hold space for people and to teach them. And in exchange, normally you're receiving money, you're receiving monetary payment and getting comfortable with the idea that what you're giving is actually worth that monetary exchange, I think is a really important part of that money mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to remember that you're creating an experience, right? Your energy, your training, your spiritual journey, you're creating an entire experience for them. And that is worthy, right? As somebody who I mentioned earlier, I'm so passionate about wellness. But as somebody who is a consumer quite often, I will pay more for an experience, right? I will pay for somebody who I know has a depth of training and shows up with an energy that's inspiring and creates a space for community and kindness um, and that is worthy, right? That is worthy. And if you want to put numbers behind it, it helps you to remember that you are in business, right? And you do deserve to be paid. And it's not just yoga instructors. We work with business owners across industries who all have a difficult time with this. And remembering what your mission is and why you started this and why you're in this path really helps overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that. Coming back to your why is huge. I think always understanding why you're doing what you're doing and why you wanted to do it and how you became passionate about what you're offering. And the other thing I wanted to touch on that you said is knowing your numbers. And I think that it's it's kind of interesting because I think sometimes we think like, okay, well, if I just don't think about this thing, like maybe it won't be true for me. And when it comes to being a yoga teacher or studio owner, we are business owners. Therefore, knowing your numbers is a part of it. And I found for me, like exactly like what you said, getting more comfortable with money really came from understanding the money that was coming in and out and having conversations around money with my accountant and my team and my husband and myself, sitting down and getting really clear and honest with those things instead of avoiding it as if it was like this taboo thing that would just go away because it's
Yes,
not
it's
going
not going to
to.
go away.
No.
No, it's not going away. I heard the reference recently that the numbers of your business is like your scorecard. It's your scorecard. It's your report card. I'm putting you back in eighth grade. Of how you're doing, and then being able to use that information to propel forward, right? So don't think of it as, oh shoot, I'm going to get an F on that report card. Think of it as the mid-quarter check-in, right? You still
Mhm.
have time to make improvements. So how can I measure my success as a business owner? How can I set goals? How can I figure out, how can I monitor where my money is going so that I'm aligned with my goals, my values, and I'm protecting that space and that energy. And the best way to do that is with this scorecard, right? So looking at this profit and loss each month will help you redirect your energy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So understanding what's coming in for income, what's going out for expenses, and understanding if you've made money that month or not made money.
Yes. And then does that spending align with your goals and your values? So, um, you know, we have some clients who say, all right, this year I am double downing on advertising, marketing, and maybe training. And then when they're spending money on that, the spending makes sense. When we send the financials, you know, we say, all right, we see that maybe you're taking a loss this year, that you have a lot of dollars spent in advertising or branding this year. But that makes sense because it aligns with your goals, right? It aligns with your values and what you're trying to do right now. Had you not set that goal, right? It might be, oh my God, why like ah, I'm scared I spent all this money and I didn't do it with intention. I did it accidentally. I didn't know where I was spending money. Whereas if you could say, all right, I'm gonna spend 10% of my income on professional development or 10% of my income on continuing advertising or redoing the website or whatever it might be, you can say, all right, this aligned with what my effort was. It aligned with where my goals and my values were for this year. The same client I was just referencing with setting those intentions for growing the business and increasing the advertising. The next year, they said to me, I need a profit, right? I need to profit. I need to make money for me personally.
Mhm.
So that year it made sense that we reduce those expenses, right? When spending was high, we said, "Hey, why are you spending so much money here?" We Our goal was to stay profitable. Do we really need to be signing up for additional development? Do we really need to be signing up for, is this the right year to rebrand again? So I encourage everyone as we go into 2021 to take a step back and really do it with a plan, do it with an intention, set a value for this year, set a mission for this year, set a plan. And then that way, when you review the numbers, you're not just saying, oh man, this sucks. You're just saying, okay, I hit my goal or I didn't. And now I can determine why. I can determine what's working, what's not working.
So, if you've been listening to the podcast for a couple of months or you're a dedicated listener who's been with me for a couple of years, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you've probably heard me talk about Offering Tree so much. But the thing about it is sometimes we don't know if it's actually worth it for us or if it's actually right for us. And so instead of just taking my word for it, I want you to hear from a fellow yoga teacher who also wasn't sure if Offering Tree was for them and if the investment was going to be worth it, and actually ended up with some really great results by having a software program. All right, here is Carly B., who is the owner of Radical Rest Yoga.
For years, there's always been this hovering, I should get a website. I should get a website. People don't know how to find me if they look me up after a class. There's nowhere to go, but I just never knew where to start. And when I got serious about doing this, go it alone. Well, how am I going to do it? I have Zoom. So I looked into it. It felt very risky at the time. And there I am, because they let you kind of build it first, see how it looks before you press the button. And there I was talking to my husband, like, am I just going to be throwing away this investment of money to commit to this for a year when I don't even know if anybody's going to show up? And I made my money back within 2 weeks.
So if you've been feeling like you might be ready to take the leap and try out a software program, check out Offering Tree. They're simple and easy to use, plus very efficient and effective in upping your yoga business game. And they're also affordable. Plus, I also have a discount for you. So head on over to offeringtree.com/M.B.Om to get that. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great piece of advice. And yeah, I think I can definitely understand, that, oh, I set a goal and I didn't hit it. And then I set another goal and I still didn't hit it, and kind of feeling discouraged. And I think for me, a key piece of that is being able to look and say, okay, well, what's working and what's not working. And I mean, quite honestly, often it's not even like my business will be doing fine, but then I realize, like, oh, I've bought a bunch of things personally that are not, expenses for my business, and I'm spending above my means right now. And that's the thing that's setting me back. And so I think it's kind of really understanding where you are so you don't get in those situations could be really helpful.
And if you separate your business and your personal, they become two different things. So um, that's another reason to go through that um, transition of really separating your business from your personal, because if they're together, you're really not sure what's not working, right? Am
Hmm.
I overspending personally or am I overspending in my business? I'm not really sure. So if you keep your business separate and you're transferring money from your business to your personal account, when there's no money left in your personal account or your personal credit cards are running up, you're able to isolate the issue, right? Your business is protected. Your business isn't going to run out of money because you're spending too much money. Your business is still going to stay intact. You're only going to be spending what you transfer over personally. And then
Right.
that will help you continue to be able to cover any additional contractors that you have working with you, or any subscriptions that you're paying for, or anything else that you need, business supplies, anything you need business wise, and keeping that separate. So now I know where to address my energy and making improvements.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point because if you have everything kind of mixed together, which is so easy to do when you're self employed or you're an independent contractor, because you're not just receiving a paycheck the way you do if you have a full-time job. You're running a business. Yet, if you don't have employees and that type of thing, or if you don't have maybe like a legal LLC or a legal business entity, then you're kind of just operating as like a person who brings in money and has expenses and then has personal expenses too. And I think that is very much where it could get confusing, and it can become a little bit unclear as to like, how the business is doing and how much money you're bringing in and where that money is going. And when somebody says, "Hey, do you want to invest in this course or something like that?" You're like, I have no idea if I have enough money for
I
that or
don't
not."
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I empathize with the fact that it is hard when you're self-employed. I know. Um, Accountability always does help. We when studio owners and instructors come to us to start working with us, one thing that they say to us all the time is, knowing that you're looking at it makes me not spend money out of my business checking account anymore. Like, I know that you're going to yell at me for it, so I don't do it
Oh
anymore.
my gosh, I love that. I could see myself being the same way. You've shamed me
Yeah.
into not spending any money.
Yeah, but it's helpful, and spend for your business, but just keep your personal transactions out of it so that it makes it clean. So I'll give you just like a legal and tax reason to keep them separate. From a legality perspective, if you were ever to be sued, um, it helps contain the issues between business and personal. And then from an IRS perspective, you want to be able to continue to claim your business expenses, and so you don't ever want to be listed as hobby income. So you want to make sure that that you're keeping those separate so that you are a clear business owner, and that's
Yeah.
even you as a 1099.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That definitely makes sense. And so I know you have a fabulous resource, the Profit Planner. Can you tell listeners a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the Profit Planner is a great resource for entrepreneurs. There's two books in the series. The first book is all about laying out the foundation. So the foundations will help you build the foundations of like a house, right? You need to have the beginning bricks to be able to start to understand your numbers. So every week, it's a 12-week planner. Every week has a goal and some accounting information. We really take the accounting terms, the accounting overwhelm out of the book. So it's really written for entrepreneurs. So each week, we have that goal with some background so that you feel confident and prepared to go into that week. And then every day we give a daily action task to help you gain momentum. And every day builds on the previous day so that you can really start to build the foundations. And then from there, really start to understand your numbers and how to use that information to really grow and propel your business.
Amazing. I love that piece of advice, I love that resource that you've created for people. So thank you so much for that. And where can people go to find you, as well as where can they go to find the Profit Planner?
Come check us out at profitplannerbookkeeping.com. There you can find the book series. You can also schedule a time to chat. I hold all strategy calls for the business. And so I encourage you, if you are not sure what you need to do next, or you're feeling really inspired and empowered by this episode, and you want some guidance on where to go to next, or evaluating what systems you have in place today and how you could use those systems for your numbers, come book a strategy call with me. I promise no hard sales. It's just a friendly conversation. I think you've heard how passionate I am throughout this podcast. And so I just encourage you to come and book a time, and we can walk through your business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Danielle. This has been such an awesome conversation, and you are just a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, of course. And happy to help. So let me know any other questions come up. I am here for you and your listeners.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to M.B.Om.yoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.